Funny, I was doing a deep dive yesterday because I wanted to bring him on with like a little compilation reel from his days at Eyewitness News in New York. Because that's when I used to watch Spencer Christian, Eyewitness News in New York. Roger Grimsby
Wait,
and
Mark,
Bill Butel.
are you talking about the link? Because you sent me something. You wanted me to run something from
Oh!
Spencer, but there was no video. You just sent me timestamps. So,
of course, that's so on brand for me. and yet still it's your fault.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
Well, just imagine the legends of local news in New York, and on the set, the great Spencer Christian. He's with us now. Spencer Christian.
What an intro. I love it. I love you guys.
Thank you. I loved you then. I mean, you've just, that was pre-GMA, actually.
Yeah. I think about those days a lot, Mark, because, I arrived in New York, the number one market. I was still in my late 20s and working with these legendary figures, Roger Grimsby and Bill Butel. And those are just very special. I have some links to some of those old newscasts from the 70s from YouTube. I can send them to you.
Please do. Please do. For future, I mean, I could talk about this stuff with you, that period of your career, forever, because I was watching local news then.
Yeah.
And so, I grew up with Warner Wolf and all those guys, so for me, seeing your career evolve to GMA and then to the Bay Area, and now you're a Bay Area institution as well. I mean, it's wild how a career can encompass so many things. But to me, that thing you did at that time, weather, then you did sports for a while, I think, and you were really one of those guys who could do it all on Eyewitness. They were number one newscast, as you say, but those guys, Grimsby and Butel, and then, as I say, Warner Wolf was a legend as well. Yeah. Now that's not either one of them. That's Larry somebody. Who is that?
Larry Kane. Who came in for about a year, 78 to 79, and he was anchoring the 11 o'clock Eyewitness News during weeknights. Larry was a good guy and a solid news guy, but he just did not last in New York. New York can be tough on some people, and it never embraced Larry. So Larry
he's wearing the Circle 7 pin. Do you still have that, Spencer? The one from WABC, I mean.
I don't have the one from WABC.
Oh, that is so disappointing.
What?
I cannot.
But, back in the late 70s there and into the early 80s, when Warner Wolf, let's go to the videotape. Hey, come on. He was the big sports guy at our station. And because he used to include me in a lot of his shtick just before they'd go from sports to weather, the viewers saw Warner and me as a team.
That's it. Now play it. You got it, Albert. This is just what Spencer's talking about. This is Warner Wolf on Sport.
Warner Wolf is happy tonight. His personal cheering section. Spencer Christian is back after a day off. He had a cold. Tonight, Warner's hot. Hello, Warner.
All right, Larry, give me a break. Larry, at the Garden tonight, the Flyers...
Give me a break. That was Warner's thing. Give me a break.
Give me a break.
Hey. Yeah.
So
if you had the Miami Heat in 4, you lose. Let's go to the videotape.
That's it. You got it.
Ahead by 20. There's no way. This is his other thing. Right, wrong. I made a bunch of list once of all of Warner's things. Boo of the week. Give me a break. Right, wrong. The right, wrong was Miami Heat up by 12. No way they can lose. Right, wrong. Let's go to the videotape. Just terrific stuff, man. He was, and you can tell just, I think, in your style and mine as well, personality is what we spark to, and people who are personalities, and Warner had a great one. So did you, and that's why you worked, you played in that band so well. So, go ahead, Albert. This is classic Spencer Christian from the 80s.
In the city. However, if the storm stalls, we could have a lot of snow, maybe as much as 8 inches. Here's the forecast for the remainder of tonight. We're calling for clear skies, low temperature between 32 and 37. Tomorrow, we'll have rain and snow developing in the afternoon, continuing through tomorrow night. High between 37 and 42, dropping off sharply in the afternoon. Tomorrow night, more snow, sleet, and rain, low between 27 and 32. Then on Friday...
But it was interesting that those days with that board, those were like magnetic cold fronts and high pressure. It was magnets.
Right. That's right. And I'd have to set the board up before, going on the air. Actually, when I first started doing weather before I went to New York back in the early 70s, I had a plexiglass covered map, and I used to draw the symbols on with like a magic grease pencil kind of thing,
Yeah.
Draw the highs, the lows, the fronts, and it as corny as it sounds, because we're now in the age of technology, high technology, but it was an animated presentation because I was interacting with the map and drawing
I see. Yeah.
as I described it,
A different kind of animation.
Yeah,
They brought in a guy too to your station, and you were there, I think. At least you were there in New York. I don't know if you were still at Eyewitness News. Named Ira Joe Fisher.
Yes.
So this guy, Ira Joe Fisher, they bring him on, and he did what Spencer's talking about. He has a map, and he's drawing it. And by then, technologies had begun to evolve to a different place. So when you saw somebody drawing a map, it was really like, that was like 5 years ago. But he would draw backward on the map, wouldn't he?
That's
that
right.
Was his superpower was that he could, from behind on the plexiglass thing, he would draw the cold fronts and everything would look perfect, but he was actually drawing it in reverse.
That's exactly right. And even the words, he wrote all the words in reverse.
Yeah, it was really cool, but it was kind of a one-trick pony.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
I think he did okay. I think he lasted a little while, but
yeah. But
you went.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We're talking about how the viewers in New York embraced their local news personalities, and you're right, but only if you were an authentic personality. You know what I mean? And
right.
People really felt like they could connect with you, but they could spot a phony in a second. I mean, if you didn't have an authentic personality, you didn't last.
Yeah.
And they also liked people who brought joy to what they did. Like Warner Wolf brought true joy to his work.
Warner was jubilance, man. I love Warner. I could watch him and I will spend many an hour. I think I've probably seen every Warner Wolf highlight on YouTube because I grew up with him. So for me, it's nostalgia, and he's so entertaining. But you were part of that crew, man. As I say, it's like watching a great band get back together. Now, Grimsby passed away, Butel passed away. Those guys from that time are gone.
Yeah,
so all we have is those YouTube clips. And then your career evolved. You went to GMA, you came to the Bay Area. And when you came to the Bay Area, what was the deal in the Bay Area? Who was were you replacing somebody, or what was that?
Peter Giddings.
Peter Giddings. Wow. Yeah. He was a giant, an institution.
He was definitely an institution in this market. And Joe Ahern, who had just taken over as general manager of KGO TV in 1998, contacted me when he found out that GMA was not going to renew me at the end of that year, and he told me he was having difficulty with Pete Giddings and contract negotiations and all that. He said, "If I don't renew this guy, would you be interested in coming out here?" And I said, "Well, I have no other place to go. If GMA doesn't renew me, there's no other job for me here in New York." So yeah, so that's how all that happened.
Well, Giddings, I was on the air against Giddings. Okay, so you were on at the same time.
That's right, you were.
And Giddings was really like just a blast, like I don't know, like a jet blast of information. Okay. I was more explaining, and I was more personality. Okay. I did a lot of live remotes and all that sort of thing. So we both had our lane, which was good, but man, he was a tough character. He was a tough personality.
He was a force of nature.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then your world, and then I'm getting to the podcast, which is why I'm taking a little walk through the Spencer Christian's world. Because he just did win an award. Then you always had this abiding interest in wine. Now you're in the Bay Area, right? And you're now close to some of the greatest wines in the world. And did you begin to sort of interlock with that world, the wine world, Napa and Sonoma and Livermore Valley, et cetera? South Bay, even great wines there too.
Oh yeah, immediately upon arrival, I did, because during my last 4 years at GMA, which would have been 95 to 99, I hosted a wine show called Spencer Christian's Wine Cellar, which aired on HGTV. And a lot of our production was done out here in Northern California. I'd fly out here on a Friday after GMA and spend the weekend producing segments for the show. So by the time I moved here in '99, I was already well acquainted with the wine world here and a lot of the people in it. So yeah, that first year I was here, Mark, every weekend I was on my way up to Napa or Sonoma or some wine region around the Bay Area.
Did you ever get pitched being a vintner yourself or going in on a wine situation, being a wine grower yourself? You must have been pitched on that.
Yeah, I wasn't, but I was smart enough to realize that that's a really tough business. It demands so much of your time. I mean, oh man, I love going.
I'm busy losing money in the casino. I don't need to lose money on the growing grapes.
Right. Well, you know the old expression, right? The quickest way to make a small fortune in the wine business is to start with a large fortune.
So you pushed away from all of that. I know. Yeah, you published a book, and you really have that same thing. Now, do you still drink wine?
Oh yeah. I have wine with dinner every night. Yeah. In fact, tonight I'm going to a special Chateau Margaux wine dinner in Walnut Creek. As soon as I get off the 4:00 news, I'm heading out to Walnut Creek.
What?
Wow, that is exciting.
There'll be some old and more recent as well vintages of Chateau Margaux served at this dinner.
Yes, Albert reminds me that I also I always have wine with dinner, and I'm eating dinner all day and all night. Look, I say, wake up with a Cabernet, go to sleep with a Pinot. It's it's a lovely process. Now you moved into podcasting, and of course, as you do with everything you do, you won an award. You're right out of the chute. You're brand new, and I mean, literally, I think it's the first year of your podcast, right? And you win this prestigious award.
I'm amazed, Mark. I don't even know what to say. I mean, I enjoy doing the podcast. I have a wide range of interests, as you know, and I like to, dig into a lot of different topics. I love what I'm doing, but I don't feel that the podcast is yet where we want it to be. I don't think of the work I'm doing in this podcast right now as award-winning, but we had this one episode that was really good, and we submitted it, and it won the Edward R. Murrow Award in the podcast category. Wow. So I'm honored, flattered, humbled, all that stuff, and excited.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's remarkable. Edward R. Murrow Award is. Did you even know that we could submit for that, Albert? Who knew that we could? Who submitted you?
The guy at our station who edits the podcast, who is part of the team. His name is Leonard Torres, and he said, we need to enter this thing for the Murrows. And I went, okay. And so he said, I think the best episode is this particular one. And I remembered the episode, and I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I said, oh, okay, having no idea that we might win, and we did.
What was the episode was concerned with what? Primarily?
Here's the episode. There's a high school senior in Marin County who, when he was 12, for his bar mitzvah project, chose to teach chess to underserved immigrant kids. Now, this guy was a chess master at 12, and he was bilingual, so he spoke Spanish. And so this was his bar mitzvah project, right? But the interest in the project and the participation grew to a level where it became a big deal. Now it's a nonprofit 501c3, whatever they call it. It's called Chess Pals. And I read about Henry Lean is his name, Henry L-I-E-N, Lean. I read about him in the Marin IJ, and I realized I know this kid's parents. So I invited him to come on the podcast. His mom brought him into the studio at KGO. And we talked about how this idea was born, and what an amazing young man he is. So accomplished and so concerned about the underserved community. And he's made such a commitment to this Chess Pals program. And so we did the podcast, and it won.
Wow, that's just terrific. And you're right. That's a great story. How old is he? How old is he? The kid
17, yeah.
Wow. That really is amazing.
But he started this when he was 12.
Yeah, it's insane. You realize this, this generation coming up, there's some great minds who really want to make a difference,
Yeah.
You play chess or not?
I don't, and I really regret it because I think of myself as a pretty smart guy. You know, I like to think I'm sort of an intellectual.
Well, you like games too, I would think. You
I
like
do
to
like
compute
games.
stuff.
But you know, I grew up in this dirt poor little rural town where most people couldn't even spell chess. So it wasn't until I got to college that I actually saw people playing chess. And by that time, my energy was going into other things, so I never learned to play chess.
I loved going in New York, particularly. You probably saw this, having been there for so many years. Those guys playing chess. I mean,
yes,
they look like street people, you know, huddled there with their hoodies, and they're playing chess and hitting that timer as they make moves. It's it's a subculture that's really cool.
It really is. Well, you know, my 7-year-old, soon to be 8-year-old grandson Noah plays chess. And when I was last in Massachusetts to visit him, which was just a couple of months ago, he said, "Pop, you need to learn to play chess. So when you come back to visit, we can play." So he turned me onto this app called Chess and Mate, where it teaches you to play, and then you play against the app. And so when I'm going back out there in 2 weeks to visit, and I'll be able to play. I hope.
Oh, that's awesome! That's terrific. No, that's really great. Yeah, you know. Of course, there's an app. I was thinking there's like a book, you know, Chess for Dummies or something. But now there's of course an app that'll literally kind of walk you through. That's cool, and that's a bonding experience he'll always remember. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, I was saying yesterday, as we finish up with Spencer Christian, that Spencer Christian is the older, successful brother that I never had. You know, he's the guy who, you know, rocked GMA. He's award-winning. He starts a you know, I've had a podcast, and I never, you know, we never submitted even an award. I don't think we would ever, you know, have been even in the hunt for one. You, right out of the chute, boom, Edward Armour Award. So it's like, I salute you in every way, and
I'm honored to be considered your brother. And I hope you'll be honored to be considered the white sheep of our family.
Oh, I get it. Boy, it's funny. I was thinking just to go politics on you, and you don't have to. I know it's tough as a media personality. But you know, Tim Scott is the Republican who, and the reason I thought of you is I think of the people I know. You're among them, who grew up either in the Jim Crow South or with. Connected to that world of Jim Crow racism in the South. So Tim Scott is one of those people. That's why I mentioned it. So Tim Scott, for those who don't know, is the latest to throw his hat into the ring as a presidential candidate. Black dude, really affable guy. Like, you can see why he's a successful politician, but he is toxic in terms of his politics. I mean, really? It's just all. But his background, I mean, he's the grandson of Jim Crow, victims of Jim Crow and Jim Crow racism in the South. And so that gives him a cred, you know, when he talks about various cultural issues that have dogged this country. And so as he has now, because it's just happened that he's announced for president, I thought of you because of your experience, which you described so beautifully in your book, you know. And growing up under sort of Jim Crow laws in Virginia, I think is where you were.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, but
he's the junior senator from South Carolina. Yeah,
exactly. And he's you know, I think he's got an A+ rating from the NRA. He has an A+ rating from the anti-abortionists. The organization escapes me. But so, you know, he's got A+ ratings from all the evil that I think afflicts this country. And yet his story is so compelling, and he'll tell it. I mean, he'll tell it over and over again because it is compelling.
It is compelling. He, you know, it's sad to me that he wants to whitewash history the way Ron DeSantis does. I mean, he seems like a good guy, as you said, and his story is very compelling, and yet he's always attacking the radical left Democrats. You know, he uses that same rhetoric that the MAGA people use, and he says America is not a racist country. Well, racism obviously isn't the only thing that defines America. When you start to define what we are as a country, we are not a racist country and nothing else. But that is a part of what we are. It's still a part. It always has been.
You know, Germany doesn't run from Holocaust history.
Right.
They teach it. There are laws on the books to make certain that it's very much a part of their history in contemporary society. In other words, they recognize hate speech, and they recognize these things that could be the seeds of another wave of anti-Semitism growing up in Germany as fascism.
Yeah.
We go the other way. We embrace as a society the myth of American exceptionalism, and part of that myth that we work to do, it seems that we work to so hard to get rid of, is this awful history we have of brutality and racism.
Yeah.
And as you say, I mean, it takes on different, this gets into a longer conversation, but the threads of it continue even as we evolve to a better place in general. But I worry, it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back a bit.
No, I completely agree, Mark. You're right, and we just have to be continually vigilant and recognize the truth. There's nothing. Well, Germany's a classic example. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging the evil deeds of the past, but continually striving to be a better society, a better country. I thought, for most of my life, I feel that we've been headed in that direction of becoming a better society. But right now, I question where we're headed. Because people proudly wear their bigotry on their sleeves now, whether they're anti-Semitic or racist or anti-LGBTQ or misogynistic. It's just all out there in the open. I'm proudly a bigot, and that's very
there's a smack talking now about it that is somehow embraced in the culture in a weird way and celebrated in the culture. And the other thing I would say is that you have to deal with that, Kim.
Yeah.
Her son is just
he's sick at home.
Poor guy's not feeling well. Yeah. But that there was a shame associated with that in the past. At least people knew that it wasn't cool to say those things that you thought in your dark thoughts. It wasn't cool to share the anti-Semitism. It's not cool to say something racist or homophobic or whatever. Now, it's sort of as you say, there's a pride associated with it, as I say, it's like a smack talking, peacocking of it. It's disgusting. Yeah. And it's enabling the worst instincts of people in this country. Did you have something, Kim, before I excuse the witness?
Well, I popped in because you guys were talking about this and you'd mentioned Germany, and I just happened to be reading this story. I thought it would be interesting to get your take on it. It is a story out of Fullerton, California, where a school is removing all Nazi symbolism from its performance of The Sound of Music. The Academy Award-winning musical, of course, based on the Van Trapp family, who lived in Austria during the rise of Nazi Germany. The principal of Rolling Hills Elementary in Fullerton, which is just north of Anaheim, decided to remove all the scenes that included the Nazi storyline, including the props with swastikas and students saying Heil Hitler. Some parents say the play is historically accurate and it should not be altered. Others say the content is too serious for 11 to 12-year-old children. So I wonder, is it important to teach them about that history during this play, or should we wipe all that away?
I'm not in favor of wiping it away. I understand the concern about the sensitivity of young children to harsh realities like that. But, those of us who grew up under Jim Crow were dealing with those harsh realities when we were 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. And yet somehow most of us managed to grow up fairly well balanced. So I think if the content of the play is taught properly and put in proper historical perspective by teachers who explain to the kids that, this is what was going on in the world at that time, but we vanquished that evil, I think the kids will be okay. What's your take on it, Mark?
No, I think that's so well said. I'd also say that there's so much in the way of technology that has matured these kids and informed these kids well past their years often. So what we think of as 11 and 12 is not the 11 and 12 of today. I also think 11 and 12, once you get to be about 12, come on, you're growing up now, right? Okay, and it's time to These are important things, and you certainly can't dry clean the sound of music of Nazism. It's a key part of the entire. What are they fleeing?
Right.
What are they fleeing? It's the big, spoiler alert, they run away.
Yeah.
Okay. What are they running from?
Right.
So it's absurd on its face, but it's also so important. This is how lessons are taught.
Yeah.
It's really sad to think that they may go away, or somehow they'll excise some of the most important stuff from this. Hey, congratulations, pal, on all your success. You're a big supporter of the show too. I thank you from my heart for the way you've embraced the show, and you've continued to be part of our family. It's really great.
Love you guys. I love the show and love you too. So
I look forward to the next time and more awards for Spencer. By the way, the podcast is called Beyond the Weather. If you're wanting to find that. After the weather, excuse me.
Same thing.
Should have been called Beyond the Weather. They rejected my suggestions, and now, of course, they're award-winning with the other. So,
there you go.
After the weather. Thanks, Spencer. See ya. Cut Christian, everybody. Woo. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.